ಏನಿದ್ರೂ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕ ಅಹವಾಲ್ ಮೇಲೆ ನಡೀತಾ ಇರೋದು. ಎಲ್ಲರದ್ದು ಡಿಮಾಂಡು ಮತ್ತು ಅಹವಾಲನ್ನ ಸ್ವೀಕಾರ ಮಾಡೇ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇಯರ್ ಅವರು ಮತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸದಸ್ಯರೂ ಕೂಡಿ ಒಂದು ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ ತೊಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ.
ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಏನಾರು ಎಚ್ಚೆತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಇವಾಗ ಅದನ್ನು ಒಂದು ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಜಯಚಾಮರಾಜ ಆಟದ ಮೈದಾನದ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಓಕೆ. ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ಇವಾಗ ಅಧಿವೇಶನ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಉಗ್ರ ಹೋರಾಟದಿಂದ ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನು ಜಯಚಾಮರಾಜದ ಆಟದ ಮೈದಾನದ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ.
ಕೇಸಸ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೊಂಟಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ ಏನೂ ಇದು ವರ್ಕೌಟ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ಹುಬ್ಳಿ ಧಾರವಾಡದಾಗ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಅದಾವೆ. ಕುಡಿಯೋ ನೀರಿನ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಅದಾವೆ, ರೋಡಿನ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಅದಾವೆ.
Hello everyone, you're watching News Epicenter with me Maria Shakil. The controversial Hubballi Eidgah Maidan is in the news once again and the epicenter of a face-off between the BJP and the opposition in the state. The Hubballi Dharwad Municipal Corporation, which is controlled by the BJP, has decided to rename the Eidgah Maidan to the Kittur Chenamma ground, named after the queen of the princely state of Kittur, who led an armed resistance against the British East India Company in 1824. Once controlled by the Anjuman Islam Muslim body, in 2010 the Maidan was brought under the ambit of the Hubballi Dharwad Municipal Corporation. However, expanding religious ceremonies at the site led to legal tussle, where last year the Anjuman Islam moved the High Court against the proposed plans for Ganesh Chaturthi, claiming permission will lead to contempt for the Muslim faith. Turning down the petition, the Karnataka High Court had said that the ground belongs to the corporation and it can do what it considers appropriate, noting that prayers during Ramzan and Bakrid cannot be interfered with as well. With that precedent, the name of the ground has been changed, and the opposition, namely the Congress and the MIM, have called it a pre-poll stunt and part of the BJP's strategy to divert attention from issues that matter, people's issues that are plaguing the state of Karnataka. But it's not just Hubballi. A new demand has come to light in Bengaluru for renaming the Eidgah Maidan in the city. Resident groups in Chamrajpet area are demanding that the ground currently with the revenue department be named after the Wadiyars, the rulers of the kingdom of Mysore. The ground in Bengaluru was also at the center of a legal storm where the government's push for Ganesh Chaturthi was challenged by the Karnataka Waqf Board in the Supreme Court last year. The top court denied permission, citing the maintenance of the status quo, as the Waqf Board claimed a religious plot, highlighting how non-Muslim religious events were not held for 200 years at the site. So how should we see this latest push to change the names of these sites? Are these local demands or pure politicking ahead of the elections? Joining me on the show, S. Prakash, BJP spokesperson; from Karnataka, Lokesh Jindal, Congress spokesperson; Rahul Ishwar, author and activist. We also have Atikur Rahman, Islamic scholar. S. Prakash, does the BJP in Karnataka have nothing to highlight in its report card and that's why it's going for the most predictable script?
No, it is wrong to say that it is a political development. Those grounds belong to BBM corporation, and the Muslims were allowed to pray there during their Ramzan and Bakrid and other festivals. And similarly, now even the Hindus are celebrating. People play there. It is used as a cricket ground, playground. Many activities other than the namaz also take place in those places. And it is naming after a public ground after Kittur Chenamma it should have been pride for each and everyone of Hubballi. It cannot be a political strategy.
But why are you even going for a name change at this juncture? Just 3 months to go for the elections.
No, it is no more called as a Eidgah Maidan. It is long back. It is named as a Kittur Chenamma playground. it is wrong to say that it is now being changed. That name of the ground which was earlier claimed by the Anjuman Islam that belongs to the their institute has been turned down by the High Court, and now the ground belongs to BBMP. BBMP is naming calling it as a Kittur Channama ground. It's very quite natural.
Okay.
Eidgah
Atikur
Maidan is
Rahman,
not a name.
Atikur Rahman,
it is not a name of any ground.
Yes,
it is
Atikur
a place
Rahman,
of worship.
Atikur Rahman, if the name has been changed after a queen, then or some person in history, then why have issue? Because it doesn't really belong to one community. That's a more neutral and a natural name to have.
Maria, we should not be getting surprised out of all these gimmicks they are playing. We all know, as you mentioned, elections are around the corner, and in the eyes of the BJP, all Eidgah Maidans are, you know, very much in their agenda. And why, I don't understand why they are moving into leaps and bounds, rather than you declare that we are moving towards a Hindu Rashtra. There is no constitutionalism left. There is nothing of minority sort. Minorities are not counted in India.
No, but I'm not too sure if that is the way to look at it correctly, because Rahul Ishwar wants to come in. Rahul Ishwar, respond to this, and then I bring in Lokesh Jindal, because this surely is in the domain of politics, not as much in the domain of religion.
Just two submissions. One, yes, there may be tug of war here and there, cultural tug of wars.
Yes.
But let us not get into an alarmist position saying that minorities don't count. See, India is home to the second largest Muslim community in the world.
Yes.
And we should celebrate it in a very positive way. Yes, there are
They are
debates,
not
there are
minorities.
discussions, there are...
Rahul, are the Muslims minorities or not?
Sir, Muslim minorities are there. We have respect towards them. Even in our flag, we have Hindu, Christian, and Muslim.
So,
when it's all said
what
and
is
done,
the second largest majority argument then? No, Maria, you need to answer Rahul. What is the second largest majority? Is this a constitutional term? Tell me.
second largest majority of Muslim population in the world after Indonesia is in India. And you know,
where is the second largest majority mentioned in the constitution?
Sir, let us
If by
stop.
your narrative the second largest majority argument goes, Maria, then are the Muslims having any minority rights then?
No, Muslims have minority rights and all the other rights. That's not the topic of our discussion. But having said that, see, we need to find spaces of consensus. For example, there was a Mughal ruler's road which was renamed as Abdul Kalam Road. That was a very fair thing, because Abdul Kalam is a person who is a person of agreement of every person, and we should celebrate people like that. So we need to have such informed discussion rather than extremely polarizing debates. Yes, we had a checkered history, we had some struggle in past, we had some troubles in the past, but we should not let the wounds of past overcome the present. So we need much more moderate discussion from both sides, whether you belong to the so-called right wing or the liberal.
I mean, yes. Because if it is being seen from the cultural prism, it should be not made into alarmist the way Atikur Rahman is making it sound. But this is pure politics. If anything, the BJP realizes that this is a script which has yielded dividends for them, and because of all that we have seen emerge from Karnataka, be it the issue of potholes, the infrastructure collapse in Bengaluru recently, this is familiar script, and a script which will lead to polarization. Lokesh Jindal.
Yes, good evening. I think Mr. Rahul Ishwar, he rightly pointed out that we have had a history, and let us not politicize that history and ignore what the state is supposed to do. Now, rose remains a rose by whatever name you call it out. Similarly, the character of that particular ground does not change if you change its name. But the point is, the manner in which BJP...
So, are you okay with the name change, Lokesh Jindal? Is the Congress party okay with the name change?
No, not at all, not at all, not at all. Because BJP manufactures conflict. It deliberately tries to sow seeds of dissension. It tries to polarize the society. A society that lived in harmony before is polarized for its vote gain, for its political ends. Social tensions are manufactured so that economic aspects, they could be overcome. The incapabilities of the government, they could be overshadowed.
No, but the other argument, Lokesh Jindal, is that Eidgah is specific to a community. if it belongs to the corporation, the local corporation, then being named after the queen of a princely state, that is Kittur, should not be objection, should not, that none of the sides should have a problem with that. What is the objection then?
If we consider the state, it's a secular state. So Indian conception of secular is all religions are to be treated equally. So the state does not favor any particular religion. Neither does it hold any particular religion in contempt. The point is the manner in which this state has been showing a degree of contempt, hostility towards a particular religion is against the constitutional principle of a secular state system. Now I want to ask a question. Will BJP ever change name of a ground that is based upon a particular historical figure, who is Hindu? No, it won't do that because it doesn't suit their narrative. But just because a particular place, public space,
no, but Lokesh Jindal, politically speaking, you're getting into the domain of culture, and I have two experts to talk about it. Politically speaking, is the Congress on sticky wicket just because of this issue? Because you are taking a stand which will not be seen as pro-minority, but it will be definitely seen as anti-majority.
No. See, there is nothing majority, minority, but it is nationalist, anti-nationalist. A stand that favors, that upholds the society, its unity, that is for the benefit of India as a nation, is nationalist, and an ideology which aims at dividing the society, creating conflict, is anti-nationalist. It's not majority or minority, I repeat again. It's nationalist.
So, Mr. Prakash, so for all the talks of nationalism that the BJP may have been doing, according to the Congress party, you are actually anti-nationals.
No, I'm not surprised by the argument putting forth by the Congress leader. They are always against the majority community. They only speak about the secularism and never show an impartial attitude towards both the majority and the minority community. It is a public ground. It belongs to the municipal corporation Hubballi and Dharwad. And it has been named long back as Kittur Channamma Maidan. It was when it was Eidgah Maidan. No activity was allowed by the Anjumam Islam Institute there. They thought it belongs to them. None of them have any activity. Now it belongs to the High Court. The Constitution, what Mr. Atiqul Rahman is saying, the same High Court has said it is a public ground, and any function can take place in that premises.
Yes. So if there is okay. Let me go with your argument. Let me go with your argument that it is a public ground. So this public ground has to be renamed. It has to be renamed right away because you have elections around the corner.
No, that public ground it was declared as public ground long back, not today or yesterday. And the ground is
then why didn't you go for a name change long back when it was declared a public ground?
It is never, no more it is called as the Eidgah Maidan. It is always called as the Kittur Channamma Maidan only. And I don't know why now this issue has come up. Long back it has been changed, and there is nothing wrong in it. And with regards to the Chamrajpet Maidan, whatever I heard, we have nothing to do with that. See, what's happening in Hubballi, the court has given a clear verdict, it belongs to Hindus. There is no conflict there. Even prayer
Mr. Prakash, so if there is no conflict, I get your viewpoint. I get your viewpoint completely. But I am saying you have elections to go for. And if the Bommai government is confident that it has done work for the people of the state, if it is confident that its welfare measures have reached the last man standing, then why go for issues such as these?
First of all, let me tell you, in this ground, 20 years back, not even national flag allowed to be unfurled there. There were restriction, prohibition, and BJP had fought vehemently and even sacrificed several of our Karyakartas in order to succeed in hoisting the tricolor in that ground. Later on, it went to the court and it became a public property. This one particular issue is was there from 1994. We don't have to seek any political gain or benefit out of this issue. There are plethora of developmental activities by the state government led by Mr. Bommai and the central government by our beloved leader Mr. Narendra Modi. We have enough developmental issues to seek votes, and we are only going to fight the election on the positive note. All these issues do come in the course of election campaign. That doesn't mean they occupy the center stage. It is the development only is our agenda.
Okay. So development is the agenda. So then who is, indulging in a polarizing discussion? Lokesh Jindal?
Will they ever change the name of Guru Golwalkar Park to that of Ambedkar Park, or let us say Abdul Kalam Park? I want to ask them a question. Will you ever do that? Will you support that? No, they won't do that. Because their entire objective of changing
How do you know?
of Mughal Garden into Amritsar,
It was your party which defeated
changing the
Ambedkar in
name
the
of cities,
parliament election.
changing
And
the name
you
of
lecture us.
parks, changing the name of various places, is simply to manufacture some form of a conflict, to create some noise, to get attention. Because their work has been hopeless in Karnataka. People are fed up. They don't even have roads. They don't even know how to build roads. How will they build a nation? So they are a complete flop show in Karnataka. Now somehow they are hell-bent upon gaining some form of an attention. So they simply came down, changed the name of a particular park. Now they will try to polarize the society, bring about social conflict, social tension, and then somehow enrage one particular community against other and try to win elections. But sir, it won't work. Please, you can do something better. Why don't you have better advisors and better people who can bring about some constructive policy formulation? Why can't you move outside, move beyond this Hindu Muslim
name does not going to bring any votes to BJP. I've already explained this ground. We have
so if it doesn't bring any vote to the BJP, then why go for it? But also, Atikur Rahman, here is a ground which is now for everybody, belongs to every member of each and every community. Why should that name continue in the first place?
That's a good argument, Maria. So all the grounds should be public grounds. In fact, when the matter went to the court, I had suggested that I would have been happier if the Supreme Court have allowed the Ganesh festival for 2 or 3 days over there. That's not the issue, Maria. Maria, the issue is why only look at this issue in isolation. The Karnataka government, time and again, be it the selling of the meat around the temples, or the Muslims having their shops around the temples, be it, beef ban and this and that, every time and again. I will never look at these incidents in isolation. The BJP stands for divisive forces. The BJP stands for anti-minority measures. That's the end of it. The last word.
So you are saying that this is all part of a larger design. But then the question is, no. According to you, this is part of a larger design. But then why not realize that there are issues that the Muslims have to think about? That there are issues of education, jobs that you should be concerned about rather than getting into the name or a rename of a ground.
Very good, Maria, very good. Let us build consensus. Let us have talk with the minority community, the leadership, the Eidgah Maidan officials, the Anjuman Intizamiya committees. Why don't the government build up consensus? Of course, Rahul is correct. When we need to have a pluralistic organization of the society, is this the way to have unilateral decisions, anti-minority decisions? Only Eidgah Maidan will be challenged and brought into, all festival kind of a thing? That's why I said that we are prepared for this. We know how the BJP will be functioning henceforth. So we are not, and I am not alarming, Maria. I am not at all alarming my people. I am telling the people that this government stands for anti-minority measures. Have it in your stride.
No, but then, Mr. Prakash, could the members of the minority community, particularly the Anjuman Islami, which is actually fighting that battle in the court, have taken on board before this rename strategy? Because if it belongs to all, take them on board. Let there be consensus, let there be discussion.
when the ground was called Eidgah Maidan, they did not allow even the trifurl to unfurl in that ground. They said it is not possible. People had to shed lives.
Mr. Prakash,
to,
that happened
unfurl
20
the
years
lives.
ago, according to you. In the last
Yeah.
20 years, BJP has come to power multiple times. It has been in power for 10 years. What did you do in these 10 years?
When it was called Eidgah Maidan, you don't permit anything to happen there. Not even the tricolor to be hoisted
But
there. And
sir,
now
sir,
when
sir,
you lost-
I'm
when you
asking
lose
you a
the-
specific
no, when you
question.
lo- not
When
you.
the
When you lose-
renaming happened, were the members of the Anjuman-e-Islami taken on board?
No, they are not the part of that ground. Ground belongs to the corporation. It's a state government
Yes.
property.
So the state
And
government is also
the
responsible
state
for law and
government,
order. State government is also
Hubballi-
responsible for ensuring that there is peace. State government is also responsible for ensuring that
Hubballi
all
Dharwad-
communities are taken on board on these important decisions.
Who has objected to it? Was there is there any protest in Hubballi for renaming it? No. The people, Hubballi Dharwad Municipal Corporation passes a resolution who are elected members of the corporation. They want to rename it means that the people of Hubballi want the ground to be called as
they are not the real
Rani Channam.
representatives. The Hubballi Municipal Corporation has only set off, is governed by the BJP. The question is that this was a
BJP
contested
is also-
property. If it is a
BJP
contested
is also
property, it is
elected by the
important
people
for
of
all the
Hubballi.
parties to be on board, because this only further divides the society and widens
Why
the
should it
fault
be-
lines.
It will divide the society if after the naming of that ground as the Kitturu Channamma ground, if the namaz is not allowed on the first Ramzan or Bakrid, that definitely divides.
So if the
But
namaz
ground
is being
open
allowed,
for
fine
every
enough,
community.
Rahul Ishwar, if the namaz is being allowed and during Eid, Bakrid and other celebrations will be allowed, then why this furor at all?
Mariji, just two submissions. One, we had even freedom fighters who named themselves Ram Mohammad Singh Azad. Our Jai Hind was given by a Muslim brother called Abid Hassan. When there was a conflict, in order to support Hindu brothers, he named himself Abid Hassan Safrani. So there is a very simple solution to it. With Atikur Rahman Sahab can take it up. We all know the historical importance of Chennamma. Why don't you call it Chennamma Eidgah Maidan? You popularize the usage. Chennamma will also be there. Eidgah will also be there. And Chennamma Eidgah Maidan can always be a great synergy and syncretism of Indian culture, where a great Hindu woman princess will be remembered, and it is also sacred for Eid. So call it Chennamma Eidgah Maidan rather than fighting for any one of them.
Okay, so that's a suggestion that is coming in from Rahul Ishwar. Are you in agreement, Mr. Prakash? That's a very secular suggestion.
No, that may be a secular solution from Rahul Ishwar, but that is for the Hubballi Dharwad Municipal Corporation members to take the call. I am not the person to decide about it. Now, I am, as I said earlier also, for the last 20 years, that ground is called Kitturu Channamma ground only.
So for the last 20 years, it is being called. Why this furor? Lokesh Jindal, if the members of the minority community are being allowed to offer namaz, they are not being stopped from all the celebrations, then why even have such a kind of chaos around the rename?
Maria, will you watch Tom and Jerry if Tom stopped chasing Jerry? Or if they both of them, they entered into a friendship? No. Because the very fact that Tom chases Jerry, we are all excited to watch the show.
No, there's no Tom and Jerry here. Lokesh Jindal, let's not trivialize it, please. Thank you so much for your time, Lokesh Jindal, S. Prakash, Rahul Ishwar and Atikur Rahman. Shifting focus to debate 2. It is a major setback for Pakistan amidst the economic meltdown as Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's government and the IMF have failed to reach an agreement. The deadlock comes after the Pakistan government declined to cut the defense budget by 10 to 20% as committed in earlier talks. The IMF has rejected the Pakistan government's gradual approach proposal to expand taxation tariffs as well as revenue streams, saying everything has to be done upfront. The IMF further added that they cannot trust Pakistan's commitments. Currently, Pakistan owes over $30 billion to the UAE, Saudi Arabia and China. And amidst the economic crisis, over 40% of its budget has gone into debt servicing. The cost of essentials, including food and medicines, continues to rise, with inflation above 27% and $1 equal to 269 Pakistani rupees. In this state of affairs, where the military calls the shots in the country. The budget of defense remains a whopping $7.5 billion. With no breakthrough in sight and the Pakistan army refusing to budge, it is fair to say that the military is once again sinking Pakistan. Let's get you the inside scoop of the talks between Pakistan and the International Monetary Fund. Top sources have told CNN News 18 that Pakistan told the IMF it needs some time to review the defense budget of this country. Pakistan's finance minister has in fact asked the IMF to wait until the army chiefs return from Britain. The IMF has told the Pakistan government that it cannot trust its commitments and that commitments have to come now. The IMF has rejected Pakistan's gradual approach proposal, saying it invokes the changes up front. Pakistan has asked the IMF mission chief to remove the cut in defense budget clause. The IMF has suspended dialogue. Its team has left Pakistan without signing a staff-level agreement. Professor Brahma Chelani, strategic affairs expert, is joining me live. Vijay Sardana, economist. Hamid Khan is senior Pakistan journalist. He's joining me from Islamabad. And G. Parthasarthi, former diplomat. Brahma Chelani, will China eventually bite the bullet? It is clearly not in its interest to see an unstable and sinking Pakistan.
China has already provided repeated bailouts to Pakistan. So has Saudi Arabia. But these bailouts from China, Saudi Arabia, and elsewhere have failed to salvage the Pakistani economy. And all the creditor nations now are looking at the IMF because an IMF bailout for Pakistan will lend credence to their own efforts to bail out the Pakistani economy. And therefore, it's very important for Pakistan to secure this IMF bailout. But Pakistan, since its creation, has lurched from one economic crisis to another. It's never been free of a crisis. In fact, since the 1980s alone, China has received 13 IMF bailouts. No other country in the world has been so dependent on bailouts as Pakistan. So given this track record of Pakistan, and given the fact that the situation today is, in the Prime Minister Sharif's words, unimaginable, the IMF has become even more important for Pakistan.
Okay. Ambassador Parthasarthi, despite being a haven of terror, Pakistan is still a strategic ally of the United States. Do you see the IMF's action as a stalling tactic from the US?
Firstly, I agree with what Brahma has said. The fact of the matter is that the Pakistan is squeezed. Even after the Saudis and the others realize it is going to be a whole out whatever is given will not work till they meet international standards. So Pakistan has little choice because even its Islamic friends, the UAE and Saudi Arabia, would be big contributors. Then you have the Islamic Development Bank. Then you have to look to the World Bank. Money has to come from somewhere. So the World Bank, the Islamic Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank, all these will contribute because, but their conditions have been very clearly set. And they have been given yesterday a memorandum of understanding on economic and financial policies before the IMF delegation left. There is going to be no cooling off on this because you can't have this country with such a large population rushing every second day by driving itself bankrupt. And I think the world has said enough is enough. And they now have been left with a stark choice. Because for the first time, I found that even the Saudis and the UAE
Yes.
are holding their hands till holding their aid till such time as something is worked out with the IMF. How can you keep pouring money into a place or a country which is so fiscally irresponsible, living beyond its means, thinking it can fool everybody? And this is a hard lesson to them, because as I see it, but believe me, they will continue their talks on the memorandum which they are talking about. And somewhere down the line, after getting itself totally nose in the dust, Pakistan will have to come around.
Okay.
Because nobody wants a country with holding nuclear weapons to collapse. That is something unacceptable.
Yes.
So that is really the card which Pakistan uses.
But then
And
the question
that is really the card, really the card which the West is now saying, hey, you ain't going to blackmail us.
Yes. So, Professor Brahmachalani, the fact that the defense budget is off limits, does that once again reiterate that the army is still above the civilian government?
Yes, Maria, the army has always been the real ruler in Pakistan. The army chief is the de facto ruler of Pakistan. But today, a crisis-torn Pakistan is at one of its weakest moments. And India should let Pakistan stew in its own juices, because when Pakistan is free from a crisis, it carries out cross-border terrorism.
Yeah, the attention
and therefore,
shifts to India.
Yes, exactly. So Pakistan, then it's internally preoccupied, battling one crisis or the other, is actually good for India. The fact is that because there's no accountability in Pakistan, because the military calls up shots there, the reason for that, as a result of that, we see the Pakistani state's close nexus with state-reared terrorist groups. And that nexus continues. Today, we have seen one important thing, that for 3 years now, since the Balakot airstrike, there has not been a single major Pakistan-backed terrorist strike in India.
Yes.
Why? Because the Balakot airstrike, whose 3rd anniversary we are going to be observing this month, that Balakot airstrike shattered the Pakistani military generals' illusion that they could continue to stage cross-border terrorist attacks from behind their nuclear shield. Pakistan's generals are now uncertain about the extent or severity of an Indian military response if they were to stage a major cross-border terrorist attack. This is what has yielded peace. And therefore, it's very important for India not to lose sight of the fact that the only language Pakistan understands is not the language of dialogue, it's the language of retribution.
So, Pakistan is busy with its internal turmoil and the big economic turmoil certainly right now. Ambassador Parthasarathy, before I bring in Hamid Khan, who is yet to join us, has the economic turmoil killed the political clout of the Sharifs and Zardari, Bhuttos in an election year? Do you sense almost a landslide in favor of Imran Khan?
I can't say if it will. Firstly, we'll have to see if the army joins with the courts to have Imran Khan disqualified. That will be their effort. But if they can't disqualify him, he'll rout them in the elections. Not particularly happy news, but I guess even Imran Khan will know that he has to be realistic economically and dealing with others.
Hamid Khan, Imran Khan is riding a popularity wave, but reports are suggesting there are not enough funds for the elections due this year. Are there any murmurs of suspending elections completely because of the economic turmoil?
No, I don't think so. They can suspend the election because of economical situation. Because election commission have already told the Supreme Court last year that we will be able to hold the election in time. So that is not the question. Yes, about as far as time is concerned, it may be just after July or August, because October is the deadline for the elections anyway. I don't think so there will be any delay because of the fund. It is not that bad situation anyway, because I think this IMF deal will be resulted in some agreement anyway.
But Mr. Khan, the time is of essence here. The people in Pakistan are dealing with an inflation of 27%. And here is the government which has decided that it will not be cutting down its defense budget. We know what this defense budget has been largely used for. It has been used for activities against India.
No. It's not about the defense budget only. Let me tell you very clearly. It's not about the defense budget. It is about the entire, taxation system as well, which Pakistan government is addressing. And to be honest, it is a big confusion about the defense budget. Pakistan's defense budget is much less than its neighbors and much less than its need. To be honest, if you look into the Pakistan's situation in the region, Pakistan do need a lot of defense budget anyway. But still, Pakistan army and other institutions have managed to cut down their expenses already.
Okay. There seems to be some problem with that line. I want to ask you one more question, Hamid Khan. If the army won't budge and it won't cut down on defense budget, then what really is the way out for Pakistan? Okay, Ji Parthasarthi, please take that question. Ambassador Parthasarthi.
Well, let's look at this way. The army will ultimately have to yield to reality. The army, yes, has a decisive say, but it cannot take the country to disaster. So I think if the IMF stands firm, it will squeeze Pakistan's capacities to build spend too much by way of defense and acquisitions. But I want to caution on one thing. Remember, there is a growing cooperation with China. And right now, after Balakot, they are concentrating on fighter aircraft. And the Chinese will do it for them on deferred payment costs, whatever. Chinese will do anything to, keep that axis directed against India with Pakistan going. That is the fundamental aspect of Chinese policies. But so remember, when you're dealing with Pakistan, you have to bear in mind the China factor. I think Brahma will agree with me on that one.
Okay. I can see Vijay Sardana also joining us. Mr. Sardana, are we seeing a repeat of Sri Lanka where short-term vision is crippling the nation in the long term?
Yes, I think if you look at what Pakistan has done, unfortunately, in the last 70 years, they have not looked into their own strengths and they were unnecessarily competing with India at all the fronts. And this has led into a misuse of their limited resources. And on one hand, and on the other hand, they were in a populist politics. Unnecessary subsidy to sectors to please because of vote bank politics. They have started diverting funds into activities which were not required. Because if you have to look at that, there's a whole problem is that the electoral politics are bent towards Punjab province. And they all are big landlords, industrialists, and powerful politicians. And most of the schemes were there to please them. Whether it is subsidy, whether it is reduced cost of electricity, free power. On the other hand, they never wanted to bring new taxes to generate resources. So this has created a serious crunch of resources. Now, if you look into IMF data or IMF negotiation paper, there are 30 points on which Pakistan has to address. And even today, if you see the IMF yesterday's announcement or the press release, they say work is in progress. Pakistan is not having capability, or Pakistan leadership has no capability to address those concerns which are vital for economy because of their domestic politics. So I think this is one serious area which IMF has. If you look into, there is almost 122-page report which is negotiations going on between IMF and Pakistan government, most of the points are very logical. But somehow Pakistan government still not convinced that they have to do surgery to revive the country. They are still believing in first aid. And I think that is the problem. It is lack of political will and political leadership. And somehow they cannot antagonize their political in the name of Kashmir, and they cannot take on their wasteful expenditure in defense. They will continue to justify why spending so much on defense is right, because there are vested interests which are involved.
You know,
So it's a complex
Professor
scenario.
Sardana, you have very well put this, that it's looking for surgery. It should go for surgery, but what it's doing is perhaps just a first aid. A last word to you, Professor Brahmachelani. With the spread of Chinese debt across the Pakistan economy, do you see the national assets now up for sale, or are we well past that?
Well, the national assets of Pakistan certainly are going to be mortgaged. You've seen that, for example, who's running Gwadar port now? China. This is just one example of how when you get ensnared in a Chinese debt trap, the Chinese will extract their pound of flesh. And this IMF conditionality that Pakistan will have to accept now will make things worse in Pakistan. Because the only way Pakistan can escape from its recurrent economic problems is if it's willing to do major structural reforms. But Pakistan is a feudal state. It's beholden to the Chinese elite that controls the economy. And if you look at what the IMF has demanded and what the Pakistani Finance Minister Dhar has said publicly just yesterday or today, that the Pakistani government will implement certain fiscal measures demanded by the IMF, including doubling the price of diesel fuel, levying about $650 million in new taxes, etc. It's going to further aggravate the economic situation in the near term and make the present government in Pakistan, which lacks popular legitimacy, even more unpopular. Because the present government led by Sharif is in power because of the military. And the military is doing its part to shore up the government. But the fact is that popular discontent is rising in Pakistan, which, fortunately for India, is crimping Pakistan's ability to create mischief in its neighborhood.
Yes.
Even in relation to Pakistan, even in relation to Afghanistan, Pakistan at the moment is in no position to use Afghanistan for any kind of hostile activity against India.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Professor Brahmachelani, Ambassador Parthasarathy, Hamid Khan, and Vijay Sardana. We are slipping to a short break. Up next, search and rescue operations continue in the wake of the deadly quakes in Turkey and Syria. We get you exclusive ground reports after a very short break. Stay with us.
Is 124 seconds. This rocket stage with carbon fiber motor case contains 7.7 tons of HTPB based solid propellant.
ऊष्मा कवच को पृथक कर दिया गया है. अब हम प्रमोचन से 177 सेकंड की दूरी पर आ चुके हैं. अभी ऊंचाई 182 किलोमीटर है तथा सापेक्ष गति 2.6 किलोमीटर प्रति सेकंड.
The closed loop guidance has been initiated and the payload fairing has been separated. The course correction of the launch vehicle takes place through a feedback loop.
Performance normal.
SS2 द्वितीय चरण सामान्य निष्पादन करता हुआ. SS2 चरण का प्रज्वलन पूर्ण होने के पश्चात 140 सेकेंड का कोस्ट फेज शुरू होगा. इस कोस्ट फेज में बिना किसी प्रज्वलन के प्राप्त संवेग से यान 423 किलोमीटर की ऊंचाई प्राप्त करेगा।
Shar, Bangalore continue to track. Trivandrum and Port Blair stations have started to acquire the data.
द्वितीय चरण का प्रज्वलन काल समाप्त हो गया है तथा कोस्ट फेज जारी है। EOS 7 उपग्रह मुख्यतः ऐसे नेतभारों का प्रयोग कर रहा है जो कि माइक्रो सैटेलाइट बस से सुसंगत और भावी उपग्रहों के लिए उपयोगी नवीन तकनीकों का प्रदर्शन करेंगे। इसमें मिलीमीटर वेव ह्यूमिडिटी साउंडर तथा स्पेक्ट्रम मॉनिटरिंग जैसे पेलोड लगे हुए हैं। EOS 7 का कुल भार 156 kg है तथा इसका कार्यकाल 1 साल का निर्धारित किया गया है। कुछ ही क्षणों में द्वितीय चरण को यान से पृथक कर दिया जाएगा तथा तृतीय चरण का प्रज्वलन शुरू होगा।
Stage separated.
The third stage SS3
Stage ignited.
has commenced its operation.
जी हाँ, तृतीय चरण का प्रज्वलन शुरू हो चुका है। यह भी करीब 104 सेकंड तक चलकर शांत हो जाएगा। उसके बाद कोस्ट फेज की शुरुआत होगी। तृतीय चरण का प्रज्वलन सामान्य।
HTPB based solid propellant with a loading of 4.5 tons produces a vacuum thrust of 160 kilonewtons. The stage burns for 104 seconds. The current altitude is 449 kilometers.
इस चरण के अंत तक हम 450 किलोमीटर की ऊंचाई तथा 7.24 किलोमीटर प्रति सेकंड की सापेक्ष गति प्राप्त कर चुके होंगे। वर्तमान में हम 480 सेकंड आगे आ चुके हैं प्रमोचन से। यान की ऊंचाई 453 किलोमीटर तथा सापेक्ष गति 6.9 किलोमीटर प्रति सेकंड। तृतीय चरण का प्रज्वलन काल समाप्त हो चुका है तथा कोस्ट फेज जारी है।
Presently, the third stage has completed its operation,
Performance normal.
but has not yet been separated. It is a coast phase along with the spent stage mass, velocity trimming module and the satellites.
अभी यान का कोस्ट फेज जारी है। यान पूरी तरीके से निर्धारित पथ का अनुकरण करता हुआ अपनी उद्दिष्ट कक्षा की ओर बढ़ रहा है। इस यान में आजादी सेट एक क्यूब सेट है जिसका भार 8 kg है। इसे 75 फेम्टो एक्सपेरिमेंट्स के लिए विभिन्न नितभार हैं। इन नितभारों को स्पेस किड्स इंडिया द्वारा एकीकृत किया गया है। इसमें UHF, VHF फ्रीक्वेंसी बैंड ट्रांसपॉन्डर्स लगे हुए हैं जो कि ध्वनि तथा डेटा दोनों के प्रेषण में सक्षम हैं।
Stage separated.
तृतीय चरण को पृथक कर दिया गया है।
Velocity trimming module ignited.
यह अंतिम तंत्र वेलोसिटी ट्रिमिंग मॉड्यूल यह यान को अंतिम अभिवृत्ति तथा गति प्रदान करेगा।
The velocity trimming module has ignited and is currently imparting correct orbital parameters for the spacecraft.
सर्वप्रथम हम देखेंगे EOS 7 का अंतःक्षेपण।
Velocity trimming module thrust cutoff.
Plus 12 minutes.
Satellite injection is the next awaited event.
Satellite injection conditions are achieved.
अंतःक्षेपण की स्थितियां प्राप्त की जा चुकी हैं। कुछ ही क्षणों में EOS 7 का अंतःक्षेपण निर्धारित कक्षा में किया जाएगा।
The nominal time of 785 seconds past the launch is scheduled for the prime satellite EOS-07 for injection.
EOS-07 satellite separated.
मुख्य उपग्रह EOS-7 का सफलतापूर्वक अंतक्षेपण कर दिया गया है.
There we have the confirmation of the prime satellite EOS-07 separating from the launch vehicle.
Janus-1 satellite separated.
Janus-1 के अंतक्षेपण की पुष्टि की जा चुकी है. उसे सफलतापूर्वक उसके निर्धारित कक्षा में स्थापित किया जा चुका है.
Janus-1 has also been separated, and here we have Azadi Sat-2 separation also.
SSLV D2 EOS-07 mission accomplished. Handing over to mission director.
सभी को बहुत शुभकामनाएं. मिशन इस तरीके से पूरा हुआ.
SSLV D2 EOS-07 mission has been fully accomplished.
With the successful launch of SSLV D2 EOS-07 mission, ISRO now has a new credible member in its launch vehicle family. Congratulations to Team ISRO.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Beautiful launch of SSLV D2 EOS-07 on a bright sunny morning.
Event tracking.
प्रज्वलन और सफलतापूर्ण उत्थापन SSLV D2 प्रोमोचकयान का अपनी उद्दिष्ट कक्षा की ओर SSLV D2 EOS-7 मिशन.
We have confirmation from the range of
hours in, and in Antakya, any sign of hope will do. Rescuers rush in. These buildings' first 3 floors have collapsed down, but left their upper floors upright. And little Yamur, aged 8, is inside, possibly alive. By the time they get her to the ambulance, though, it's clear they were too late. Her mother outside, only able to watch her everything vanish. My little one, she says, don't take her. Don't let her get lost. Antakya's streets, a chilling patchwork of what's left standing and what's not left. In its ruins, anxious crowds of rescuers and locals thinking they heard someone alive, demanding silence so they can listen again. Down here is Ahmed, the rescuers say, alert, responsive, a Syrian refugee. The building next to him barely hanging on at an angle. Their work desperately wishing it were quicker. Across the city, hell has landed. This man guarding his neighbour's books with his father-in-law next to the body of his mother-in-law. He gestures behind him to where he once lived.
It's kind of hard to get your head around just how inhabitable a city of this size has become so fast. Literally every street you walk down has a scene like this, and the roads out, well, they're jammed full of people trying to get away to safety because the building still could collapse, and the roads in, rescuers, people even trying to get their possessions back, and those who've stayed lining every part of the green spaces we can find with tents to try and stay warm.
The trees, perhaps in just enough space away from buildings that could crumble. A new world for children, smiling, neither oblivious nor somehow shaken too hard. Dusk, and the smoke of fires settles with the dust to choke the streets. But back where we were an hour earlier, there has been relief. Ahmed was saved, pulled out from the hole. His family, perhaps still inside. The medics keep asking him, did you hear any signs of life from them? No, he says. They say he cannot wait for them, that he must be treated after 86 hours entombed. The weight of grief even as he is saved. His friend Jamil was pulled from the rubble earlier. I have been given life again, he says. I saw death before my eyes. I saw my own grave. The same twist of fate here. There have been noises deep inside the bottom of what was once an apartment block. First, out comes one man, Suleiman, aged 21. The frantic work of medics here suggesting he did not make it.
I think it's the impossibility of hope here that somebody could emerge after all this time alive from the wreckage that's driving this large crowd of rescuers. The most intense work done by hand right at the front of the rubble there.
Out comes a 4-year-old boy named Alpazlan, rescuers said. Alive, seen trying even to take off his oxygen mask. His father, Tolga, who follows shortly, does not seem to move. 89 hours in the rubble that both tore a world apart, but found enough mercy to spare its youngest.
To see the devastation in a city of this size is just utterly remarkable. Some streets, one building, fine, it seems untouched, standing, the next utterly flattened. And some streets indeed with the bottom 3 floors of an apartment block crushed on each other and the rest of the building standing upright. It was indeed in one of those where we saw a glimmer of hope, rescue workers running towards, and you can see them running behind me here as well, running towards the scene where they thought they had found an 18-year-old girl alive. Sadly, in front of her mother, she was brought out and seen to have perished in there. But down here at this wreckage, continued bids to respond to the noises they hear, to respond to what they hope will be people being brought out alive, and anger too that we hear from bystanders looking in one case at the now destroyed home of their sister and her entire child family. Anger at the construction, how some buildings are upright through building regulations being followed and some are crumbled down to rubble, and a culture really of where construction is so part of the money here, so some accused it of being riddled with corruption, and how that made them angry too, the government culture that would permit that to occur. But still now the urgent task, responding to the noise that they hear inside the rubble, calls for silence, a pause in work, and then sadly, as we've seen over here, some bodies that have been brought out. It is a grim and constant job that we are hearing and seeing from the rescue workers here. And in no case over there, some of those bodies marked with owner, suggesting that they have been identified, that somebody may be there to collect them soon, and others left with those questions still unanswered.
A rescue worker sings to little Mina, talks and shares stories with her. He goes on and on, chatting about anything to distract her from the horrifying reality that she's being extracted from the ruins of her home. Mina is eventually pulled out safely. Her family has also survived. Rescued by members of the White Helmets, a group of first responders seen as heroes in this rebel-held enclave of Syria. Nearly 12 years of war has made the group experts on the grim task of retrieving people from collapsed buildings. Syrians living in opposition-controlled areas, battered by the government of President Bashar al-Assad and feeling neglected by the world, have come to depend on only themselves, even in the aftermath of a devastating earthquake. And for the thousands of wounded pulled out of the rubble, they face a healthcare system on the brink. Another volunteer group here is the Syrian American Medical Society, doing its best to provide care on the ground. But equipment and supplies are scarce, and countless deaths, they warn, could be prevented if they could just get the basics. And for those survivors, unharmed but made homeless, vehicles are now shelter. Sidewalks are beds. Shivering in olive groves is all that's left. A crisis within a crisis that's left those with nothing, somehow with even less.
Beautiful launch of SSLV D2EOS-07 on a bright sunny morning.
We have analyzed the problems faced in the SSLV D1, identified the corrective actions, implemented in a very fast pace, qualified all of those new systems, went through large amount of simulations and studies to ensure that the vehicle will become success this time.
Stage separated.
तृतीय चरण को पृथक कर दिया गया है।